today I'd like to talk to you about old Stodge. The old Stodge opening setup, as I call it, not original to me. I think W.H. Auden, but it is this thing. It's you get into it through the most natural and most good intentioned of moves. We play E4, E5. The knights come out, so far so good. Bishops come out, also so far so good. White's ready to castle. And to get the rest of the pieces out, White sometimes goes D3, maybe F6, Knight C3 and D6. And I don't like people to play this. I rage long and hard about it. I mean, you can see it sometimes on both sides of every game in some junior tournaments once they learn how to play it, because it feels familiar and it feels safe, but it's not easy to play and it's not very safe actually. It's I mean, the biggest thing that's wrong with it is that it's stodgy. These rooks I'm already starting to feel sorry for. Which file are they going to occupy to have a decent career later in the game? And the pieces are, are developed, but there aren't very many plans here that people know, or if they do know a plan, it's not very hard to combat. Sometimes people play Bishop G5, and if White can get in this Knight to D5 move as well, then that's going to be powerful. But Black can combat this in a number of ways. The easiest is just to kick the bishop straight away with H6, and if the bishop retreats, well, actually you can chase it with G5. Black needn't fear the usual sacrifice in these positions, because Black's not castled, and this is, I mean, it might be worth a try, but I mean, this is better for Black. So, another thing that's not too right with this is actually if White castles, Black might even be able to play H6, not as a defensive move, but as an attacking one, with the idea that if White continues with their own sort of H3 play, we can carry on with G5 and start a kingside attack of our own, again because Black's not castled. So it's stodgy. White's best plans may be easy to counter, and actually it can be dangerous because even a natural move like castling might not be best. So that's why not to play it. What to play instead? Well, try and give your rooks a good time by opening up a file somewhere. And after, in this position, the two pawns that are in the centre, E5 and E4, that's the pawn that's most likely to get swapped. So let's try and play D4. Now at the moment that pawn is going to get swapped off. You're going to lose it. You can play it as a gambit actually. It's actually a move that's played. But let's play the more natural C3 and see what happens now. Well, you're going to get a more open game, and more open games are more fun because they're more exciting. The pieces come into collision in the middle a little bit earlier, but also they're creating, you're not leaving your opponent alone just to get on with it. We're saying, well, what are you going to do about D4? If Black continues developing, right, here's D4, I'm attacking a pawn, I'm attacking a bishop, what are you going to do about that? And not all players know what to do about this. Sometimes they make a bad move here. The best move is to take, I think, on D4, and now you've got a choice of things to do. C takes D4 creates a very big centre for you. You don't, I mean, this isn't better for White because it's Black's go and you don't get anything without your opponent making a mistake in chess, but Black can make some terrible mistakes here. If they retreat, you can spend some time happily kicking the knights around with moves like D5 and E5, with some D5 and E5, squashing the knights and grabbing huge amounts of space in the centre. So Black can immediately go wrong. Now the right move here is Bishop B4 when the game goes on. That's all quite well explored, but if your opponent discovers what to do after C takes D4, you can instead play E5 which is often leads to a line of the two knights defence, a little bit more interesting than boring old Stodge. And you can also play this gambit of castling, where black's got a choice of taking on c3 or e4, and both of which you get an open game. You're giving up a pawn for development, and you maybe get an attack in. So that's a much better way to play old Stodge. Now the correct name for old Stodge, so this is often just generally referred to as the Italian game, but this is the Gioco Piano, the quiet game, is called by the Italians. I think it was called by the Italians before there was such a thing as Italy, but never mind. The Italian games it's often referred to. And now this setup, which is so stodgy and slow, is called the Gioco Pianissimo, the very quiet game, and so it proves to be. Whereas this much more lively way of playing it, a more open way of playing it, is really really a lot more fun, and I commend it to you. In fact, there are lots of other ways of seeking to play d4. For example, is Evans' Gambit. We're going to pay black a pawn. Black takes the pawn. Thank you very much. But we get a free move to use towards our plan of c4 and d4. So now we've played all of our plan without black being able to do much about it. You get nothing. You don't get anything for unless you pay for it, and we pay for it with a pawn. But this is Evans' Gambit, and it's terrific. I mean, why not play like this? And there are other ways of playing a game more actively for white. We can play here on move 3. We can play d4 instead of bishop to c4. Rather than struggle to get d4 in, we just play it, and off we go. This is another way of playing the game. Black should take, and now you can either take back, and there's plenty of videos that show you how to play this variation for white on the Devon Junior Chess website, the YouTube channel rather. Or after e takes d4, well, now bishop to c4, and you're away with again a very open, a very different style of playing chess to the Gioco Pianissimo. How do you seek an open game as black? Not so easy if white doesn't want to cooperate, but let's have a look. So imagine we get this far and we're playing black. Well, one move that I'd certainly recommend to you, if you fancy it, is to play knight to f6. This is called the two knights defence, and black might be well tempted to play this once they realise, I think, that after knight g5, apparently strong, you can give up a pawn yourself, play a gambit for active play. So here and now, either knight a5, a slightly odd looking move, maybe the best, but sort of a grandmaster move is that, I think. But I've always rather enjoyed b5, playing a gambit of your own when takes and takes. Yes, you're a pawn down, but your bishops have got fine diagonals to get out. The two developed white's pieces are going in completely different directions, and you've sacrificed a pawn for free development and good control of the centre. Why not have a go at that? So that's knight g5 is no great threat to the black position, and there are other things you can try in this position as well. I've even seen people play this one and say, go ahead, take my pawn. So two knights defence is a nice way to seek an open game. There is a slight flaw in it, in as much as white can try and close things down and be very dull with d3. But when if you seek an open game now with d5 yourself, I mean you're playing as though you were white, and that may rebound. I'm sorry to say that takes castles by white and rook e1 is may well create some problems for you down the e file. And I think this position is slightly better for white, which is a shame. So after d3, how do you keep a more interesting game? Well, the latest idea is to play h6, and if white plays knight c3 as they might, d6 castles, and now g5, because you've not castled on that side, you can actually have a go at opening up that line yourself. For example, I've seen here h3 when I think g4 is pretty good for black. You're getting the open lines against the white king, and you might win very quickly. So 2 knights defence, that's one way of playing for an open game with black. If you don't think white's going to cooperate very happily, the other thing you can play is we can go for the Petrov defence, which is knight f6 here. One of the points being that if white insists on going for their stodgy idea of playing the Greco pianissimo with bishop c4, well, in this position you can play knight takes e4, and if takes d5, you've got a fine open game, and I would have thought at least equality. If white doesn't play bishop to c4 here, they can play the Rai Lopez Spanish game with the Spanish four knights game rather, in the style of the Rai Lopez with bishop b5, and now I think knight d5 offering your own gambit here is really good. So that's a more active way of playing. Again, you're giving up a pawn for active play. Lastly, in this position for white, I mean there are other moves white can try, but perhaps the best try for white is d4. And now you're playing the Scotch four knights game, not the Spanish four knights game. And I think black is, quite happy here with an open position, ready to castle, and away you go. So that's another nice way to play for white. So the Petrov defence as played here, white's got alternatives. They can play d4, but you're going to get an open game and probably an equal one as well. And the other line here for white is on move 2 to take here. You chase the knight away first, and then you take on e4, and then the main line goes d4, d5, with an unbalanced position, symmetrical pawns, but not a dull position entirely. And if you're prepared to sacrifice pawns, develop quickly, you get a nice interesting game as black. Lastly, as an attempt to get an open game for black, after e4 you can try d5. And the beginners' books often spout a lot of nonsense here about black losing time for development because they're going to get the queen kicked around. But, white's lost time for development by taking your pawn and developing your queen. So after, say, knight c3, queen a5, both sides have got one piece developed and no pawns in the centre. So I don't really see where black's lost the time. I mean, you might not want your queen on a5, but and white might get a hit against it later. But it's not bad. If it is bad, it's not bad for that reason. And play can continue along these lines. Black's got a very solid sort of position, very solid sort of setup. And you can continue with moving the e pawn up. The knight usually comes to d7, and your bishop will develop on this diagonal somewhere, not usually as far as b4, but perhaps to e7, and castle. Very solid, very sensible setup, and you're starting to get some good control of white squares. If that's a little bit too fancy and slow for you, another idea is to play knight to f6, hoping for a slightly improved version of that game. If, for example, white plays knight to f3, you can play bishop to g4, bishop e2, and queen takes d5, and we've got a slightly more active position than we had before. That's not a bad way of playing. If you're frightened that white will be annoying and try and steal your pawn, I think, well, let them do that. You can play e6 and encourage white to develop your pieces for you. Now you are a pawn down, you've paid a pawn, but you're getting developed, and that's worth something. And this position after d4, bishop b4 check, knight c3,
I think is turns out really well for black usually. The best line probably is knight e4, but let me show you a game after queen e7. Played at top level actually. This is black was playing here was a grandmaster, and white was approaching international master strength if they weren't a master already. Bishop e3, knight g4, queen f3, knight c6, bishop d3, castles. Black is developing at blinding speed, really very exciting. And after knight on g to e2, we've got this fantastic sacrificial move, knight c5, and takes, and we're forking the queen and the bishop. Queen g3 check, the king has to step into the side without being able to castle. Bishop takes c4, the king continues to grovel out of the glare of the bishop. Knight takes b2, queen takes g7, that looks like a risky move. Opening up lines against the king again. Queen takes h7, and after queen to d7, threatening all sorts on the back rank and elsewhere. For example, one of the threats here is to take, I think to take the knight first, and then black will play a back rank mate, and white just resigned here. So really exciting, open, tactical chess, just the sort of thing to help you have fun over the chessboard, just the sort of thing to help train you in the sorts of tactics and spotting what's attacking what that you need to do when you're starting out in chess, and absolutely the opposite of boring old Stodge.